We got some massive injury news to discuss before this NFC North showdown in US Bank Stadium between the Vikings and the Bears. My name is Patrick Seatman, and welcome in to Vikings Now by Chat Sports. We'll discuss the latest injury news around the Vikings and the Bears. And then I do want to dive into 5 key matchups heading into this Week 11 battle. But one thing I want to highlight here before we dive into the whole show, and what I think is going to be the biggest key to victory for the Vikings this weekend, is keeping Caleb Williams in the pocket. Because as we know, the Vikings have been able to generate pressure at a very, very high level this season. They're actually first in the NFL in terms of quick pressure rate, which is when you beat the offensive lineman by less than 2.5 seconds. The Vikings are doing that on 27.6% of plays. And actually, the Bears are dead last. So that's a huge advantage for the Vikings. But also, Caleb Williams, he is the best escapability quarterback in the NFL. He has forced 26 missed tackles, which is number 1 by a quarterback in the entire league. And for some context, Josh Allen is second in the NFL, only forcing 17 missed tackles. So I think Caleb Williams, his superpower is to avoid sacks, escape outside the pocket. So lane integrity is going to be huge because the Vikings, they have been able to generate pressures at a high level this season. But it comes down to getting the quarterback down. So I'll ask you guys this, over under, what one are you taking? 3.5 sacks for the Vikings this weekend. Give me an O for over. Give me a U for under. You guys, let me know your thoughts down below. I think if the Vikings want to, beat the Bears in this must-have, got-to-have a game, you got to bring down Caleb Williams at least 4 times. So you guys let me know, what are you taking? Over, under, 3.5 sacks. All right, so the massive injury news here is with J.J. McCarthy. And, of course, he ends up popping up on the injury report. But Wednesday, during that practice, he wasn't limited with a hand injury. And I thought it was interesting when he was doing his press conference after practice, he kept his hands in his sweatshirt pocket the whole time because he had a bandage on there. So I was a little concerned that maybe he wouldn't be able to go. But this past Thursday today when we're filming this, he was practicing in full. So that's great news there. But the one thing that I think is very important to discuss with JJ is, he has obviously been up and down this entire season. But he also has not been good in games when he has gotten hurt. Now, this is completion percentage over expected. And in the Week 10 game, he was terrible after that hand injury. It was on that one deep in that Justin Jefferson was running, where, in my opinion, he ended up dropping the football. Could have been a big-time play for the Vikings in that game. But after that play, he was minus 15.1%. And if you guys remember, after the ankle injury in Week 2 early on in the game, it was minus 27.4%. So when JJ is clearly banged up, he is not playing good football. But overall, he hasn't been playing good football the entire season. It's been very up and down. Now, we have seen the flashes, which I have, kind of hanging on to give me some hope in him developing. And I was talking on the video yesterday, just Vikings fans, I guess should be patient with him. And, also Kevin O'Connell. So, clearly JJ not playing good football this season. But, I do think maybe this could be a benefit almost to the Vikings, and it could almost force Kevin O'Connell's hand a little bit. Maybe this just forces KOC to run the ball more, where he understands, like, hey, you got a 22-year-old quarterback making his 5th career start, going against a Bears team, which you can run on them somewhat. Maybe this just forces Kevin O'Connell's hand to run the ball more. Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason, get those guys going. Now, one thing that I probably do a full video on this coming up this weekend, Justin Jefferson, he was talking about getting back to his old self, getting back to that 2022 version. He was really attacking DBs. He had some cool quotes there, so maybe KOC heard that, and he's going to force feed 18 this weekend, but we'll see on that. But let's get to the other injury news here. Not a good update on Willie Fries. He is limited with a calf injury. Now, even though I don't think Will Fries has lived up to that $88 million deal he signed this offseason, he has been very consistent. Like, he stayed healthy this entire season. He's been the really only offensive lineman that hasn't been in and out of the lineup. So hopefully Will Fries will be able to go. So he's limited with the calf injury, but not good here. And I wouldn't expect to have Jonathan Gennard, 58, out there this weekend. He was a DMP with a shoulder injury. Listen, he looked like he was incredibly banged up after that play happened against the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, he was screaming in pain. So I thought it was a long shot he was going to play, but he was DMP on Wednesday, DMP on Thursday. So it also gives an opportunity. Dallas Turner, step up. But I do think what's going to be key with Turner, I think he is one of the worst edge rushers in the league in terms of just setting the edge and playing the run. He was great last week, in my opinion, dropping into coverage a couple times. Had that one batted pass that should have resulted in an interception. So Dallas Turner, he's going to be key. And also something to monitor, Josh Metellus, he has been limited the past 2 days of practice with a foot injury. So if he can't go, maybe a guy like Jay Ward, former third-round pick, maybe he steps up in there and plays some good football. But Metellus, even though he hasn't been great in coverage this year, he's still just a key cog in the Brian Flores system. So if he can't go, that could be a huge loss. But the biggest loss of them all. And still reports are indicating that Van Ginkel will go. But again, these neck injuries are just, they're tough, man. They're tough to deal with. So he has been limited with the neck injury Wednesday and Thursday. I wonder if this is just kind of, veteran rest day for Andrew Van Ginkel, where they don't want to risk it too much. But I mean, I think he is, honestly, I always said Grenard was the best player on defense. I think it's AVG. He is so key to this unit. And, if he can't go, the Bears are going to be able to run the ball all over the Vikings this weekend. Let's get to the Bears injury report here. Bears injury report on Wednesday throughout the season has been loaded. Guys like DJ Moore, Roma Dunze, but they were both upgraded to limited. Now, the 2 injuries to watch here. Joe Tooney, DNP Thursday, probably just going to be a rest, so he should be out there. But TJ Edwards, starting middle linebacker for the Chicago Bears, he was a DNP, so he won't go. Jaquan Brisker, DNP as well. A little disappointed because Brisker a couple weeks ago was saying he made Justin Jefferson cry in a game, which I'm assuming Jettas would want him to be out there. So the Bears are, fairly healthy, but they do have some key guys missing like TJ Edwards and possibly Jaquan Brisker. So you guys let me know. Predict the score for me. Got to have it. Must-have game for the Minnesota Vikings. US Bank Stadium. You got a chance to move to 3-0 in the division and put the Bears at 0-3 in the division. So motivation should be at an all-time high. And we'll talk about some key matchups here in a second. But if you guys could, predict the score down below. Now, I do want to give a massive shout-out to today's presenting sponsor, that being Prize Picks. Now, the hard-hitting football action is even better with Prize Picks. And the weather might be changing, but the feeling of being right never gets old. So keep the season rolling on Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. Now, Prize Picks is the only app out there that offers stacks. Meaning you can pick up to the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. So if you guys want to pick more on J.J. McCarthy's pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns this weekend against the Chicago Bears, now you can pick all of them in the same lineup only on Prize Picks. You guys can also follow other Prize Picks players directly on the app and copy their lineups in one click. Whether it's a friend, a celebrity partner, or just someone whose picks you like, hit that follow button and check out every single lineup they create in the brand new Feed tab on Prize Picks. So download the Prize Picks app today, plug in that promo code CLNS, and we'll hook you guys up with $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. But that's promo code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Shout out to Prize Picks for sponsoring today's show. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. All right, so the first matchup to watch here, kind of like what I was saying at the top of today's show, it's going to be the Vikings defensive line versus Caleb Williams. You got to keep this guy in the pocket because I do think Caleb, even though he's been somewhat inconsistent this season, he does have a superstar ability, and that's just to play backyard football. And that's where he's at his most comfortable. But if you can keep him in the pocket, have you beat this defense from that position, should be an advantage for the Vikings. But even dating back to week 1 against Caleb, the first drive of the season, we saw this guy scampering around, evading, sacks. Jonathan Gennard, he should have had 3 sacks in that week 1 game. Wasn't able to bring him down. So hopefully, Dallas Turner, Andrew Van Ginkel, especially those guys up in the interior, Hargrave and Allen, lane integrity is going to be huge. Because if you can keep him in the pocket and force him to kind of dink and dunk his way up the football field, that should be a big advantage of the Vikings. But if you let him get out, make big-time plays, he can really take the crowd out of the stadium. That's going to just be huge. I think by far that is the number 1 key to victory and the top matchup for us Vikings fans heading into this Week 11 game. But also a huge advantage for the Vikings. It's going to be the wide receivers versus the Bears CBs. Now, they're still without Jalen Johnson. Tyreek Stevenson has not been playing good football as of late. So, again, this is going to be Kevin O'Connell kind of, how often does he want to throw the ball? Because I do think with all the noise around him not staying committed to the run this past week, like it is really, taking heights we haven't seen. Like guys are asking him at the press conferences. I do think KOC will be more committed to the run, but also he understands like the best football player on your team is Justin Jefferson. So you're going to want to get him the football. Should be a big advantage for the Vikings wide receivers this weekend. But another huge one is the Vikings stopping the run. Now, they have been much better over the last couple of weeks. You're going against 2 of the best rushing offenses in the league past 2 weeks with the Lions and the Ravens, and they have been fantastic. Like Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Derrick Henry, they have been able to limit those guys. But the Bears run game, like with Ben Johnson, they have killed the Vikings defense under Brian Flores in the past. So guys like Hargrave, Jalen Redmond, Jonathan Allen, even the linebackers, like Eric Wilson's been great. Blake Cashman's been pretty good. We'll see if Ivan Pace gets in there, but stopping the Bears run game will be huge because you want to take the crowd out of a game. If you're an opposing team, especially in an NFC North matchup, run the ball. 4 yards here, 5 yards there, stay ahead of the sticks. So force Caleb into some 3rd and longs, keep them in the pocket. That's going to be the recipe for success for the Vikings. And then I should probably make this number 1. Kevin O'Connell versus himself. It almost is like the Green Goblin mask in Spider-Man where KOC, he wants to stay committed to the run, but then it's just like a devil on his shoulder just whispering him to him, throw it downfield, get Justin Jefferson the ball. Like, sometimes he just can't help himself. So even if the Vikings get down by a score, 2 scores, stay committed to the run because you want to make J.J. McCarthy's life easiest or easiest as possible. And how do you do that? You get this kid a run game. That's how he was so successful at Michigan. That's how he was successful against the Detroit Lions. So KOC, contain yourself a little bit, and maybe open up the playbook, which you would love to do in the second half of this game. But this last one, the Vikings versus pressure. And what I mean by pressure is more of the internal pressure on this football team, because I think this is such a game where typically in Vikings history, it's a get-right game. I'm starting to change my tune on that because this Vikings team, they understand if you drop this game against the Chicago Bears, a team where you are 3-point favorites against, your season's over. And there was a ton of pressure on the Vikings. This is going to feel like a playoff game, and sometimes that pressure in the past has really, combusted this Vikings team. So that's going to be huge this weekend, and I just think starting this game fast will be massive because if you get down 10-0 early, the crowd, it's going to be a tense building in their U.S. Bank Stadium. I expect boo birds to come out if the Vikings offense specifically starts off slow like they did this past week against the Baltimore Ravens. But if you guys made it to the end, we appreciate all of you guys for watching. Just hit me with those skulls down below in the comment section. Shout out to all the real ones for watching this entire video, and we will be live an hour before kickoff, so make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell, and we'll get on out of here. As always, Skol Vikes.